I'm sorry about what's gonna happen to you.
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, where I cover vampires and all kinds of supernatural creatures. In this video, we're going to finally be looking at the movie Abigail from 2024, directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillette, best known for directing Ready or Not and Scream 6. This movie has a great cast, including Dan Stevens, Kevin Durand, who is also in Legion, which I just covered, Giancarlo Esposito, Catherine Newton, and more. Abigail is a horror movie about a group of criminals who are hired to kidnap the daughter of a major crime boss. Their plan is to extort him for money. However, when they have to stay the night in this old mansion, a simple job turns into something much more sinister. Let's take a look at who Abigail is, her mysterious father, this old mansion, the curse, and more. If you enjoy videos about supernatural creatures, leave a like and subscribe for new videos every week. Before we get into Abigail, this video is sponsored by War Thunder. I'm a big fan of history, especially when it comes to World War I and II, and I've actually been playing War Thunder for a while, so when they reached out, it was perfect. War Thunder is one of the best military multiplayer games that's free to play, available on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. War Thunder is filled with different locations, terrains, and so many different vehicles from all nations, even prototypes. Go into all-out war and choose from ground vehicles, air, or sea. I find myself always doing dogfights. One of my favorite parts about this game is the vast ability to change and upgrade your vehicle's equipment, as well as customize the appearance. The possibilities are endless, and if you're like me, you'll spend your fair share of time here. War Thunder also has a unique damage model. No boring health bars here. Every hit on an enemy has a real effect. Depending on where you hit them, you might take out their turret, disable the track, or take out an essential crew member. If you're accurate enough to hit the fuel tank on the plane, it will ignite. And you can visualize the damage you have done with the X-ray mode. The Alpha Strike update is out now, which brings Hungarian aviation, along with a bunch of new equipment, modern and classic. There's also a new map, North Holland, which I can't wait to try out. Fight in the red light district, or drive through the mall. If you've been wanting to try War Thunder, now is the time. Download the game for free using the link in the description below. All new players and those who haven't played War Thunder for half a year or more will receive some special bonuses. Rentals for the P-40E1 aircraft and M4 tank for a week long with free unique skins for them. A special decorator, Eagle of Valor, 100,000 silver lions, 3 premium vehicles for free, a week of premium account, and even more gifts. The American vehicle bonus season will end soon, so make sure you get it now. Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring the video. The movie begins with a young girl doing a ballet performance. She's in a theater all alone, so she must be practicing. At the same time, we see a group of 5 people preparing to do a heist. Turns out their target is the girl. She goes home from ballet practice and the group sneak into her house. They wait until she hangs up the phone, then inject her with a sedative. The father comes home during the kidnapping, which isn't part of the plan. They leave as quickly as possible, but halfway to the gate, the alarm goes off. Everyone gets in the van and they manage to get out of the city with no problems. After escaping the city, we cut to them driving down a long wooded driveway with a large gate. Whoever lives here must be a fan of Haunted Mansion. After entering the gate, they are greeted by a man named Lambert. He says that the group came highly recommended, and so far, it's paid off. He lays out some rules for them. No real names, no backstories. It's a 24-hour job and the hard part is over. Now, you babysit. He only wants one of them to go in the room so that the girl will only recognize one voice, just in case. She's also been blindfolded so she can't identify any of them. One of them wants to know who her father is. The only answer Lambert will give is a wealthy man who's about to be $50 million poorer. To ensure that they can't be tracked in any way, he takes all their cell phones. We still don't know anyone's name at this point. The big guy wants to know why they can't use their real names, and the group leader says it's so if one of them gets caught, he can't rat the others out. Lambert says, "You want names? Fine. Frank, Dean, Sammy, Peter, Joey, and Don Rickles." So far, it would appear that Lambert is the one who organized the job. The group is to watch over the girl while Lambert orchestrates a deal for ransom. Before leaving, he says keep the doors locked and the girl isolated. The kitchen and bar have been fully stocked. Plus, there's a fire already lit in each room.
See you in 24 hours, my lovely pack of rats.
The big guy seems to be the only one confused by this and says, why would he call us rats? But they quickly move on. Of course, they hit the fully stocked bar first. They speculate on who the girl's father could be. Tech billionaire? Real estate maybe? Dean thinks if he's that rich, it must be weapons or something illegal. We get to learn a bit more about the group when Dean fails miserably to guess everyone's background. This leads Joey to show him how it's done. First, she can tell that Frank was a cop by how he stands. He carries a standard issue Glock and shoulder holster, plus he used police hand signs during the kidnapping. He's too smart to be a normal cop. He must be a detective. The whole time she's saying this, Frank doesn't say a word, so we get the feeling this is all correct. Peter was muscle for a criminal organization in Quebec. Sammy is their computer whiz. She started by stealing money from her rich parents. The only thing Joey says about Rickles is Semper Fi, and that's letting him off easy apparently. My guess is he was in the military and dishonorably discharged for some reason, or did something he's ashamed of. As for Dean, he's the best wheelman in town, and she agrees with that, but says he's got some loose wiring, and he's not professional. Joey walks away to check on the child, and Frank can't help himself. He says, "And you're a junkie. Cop knows a junkie. Your little candy affectation, long sleeves. Why you won't have a drink with us? Is this going to be a problem?" Joey quickly responds no, and walks away to check on the girl. This time when Joey enters the room, the sedative is worn off and Abigail is awake. She's confused and doesn't know where she is. The blindfold is too tight and her arms hurt, so Joey takes them off. Abigail is quite upset and asks if they're going to hurt her, and Joey says no and goes a step further to pinky promise that she won't let anyone hurt her. As long as her dad gives them the money they want, everything will be fine. Abigail asks if Joey has any kids, and she says a boy. Abigail wants to know more about him, but it seems like Joey really doesn't know much. This makes me think that either she can't see him anymore, or maybe he's passed away. Joey seemed to get very touchy when Abigail brought up the subject of her son. Abigail goes on to say that her dad thought he wanted a child, but he just lost interest. "You've made a mistake. He doesn't care about me." Joey says she's gonna leave her alone now and stands back up to go downstairs. But just before leaving, Abigail says one last thing.
I'm sorry about what's gonna happen to you.
Well, that was definitely kinda weird. She went from hysterically crying to being kinda scary. Back downstairs, Peter is purposely losing a game of quarters so that he can drink the entire bottle of liquor. Joey goes back to the bar and is reasonably a little more worried now. She asks if Frank, the leader of the group, knows who the girl's father is. He admits that he doesn't know and doesn't care. Joey, on the other hand, is worried that Abigail's father might be extremely dangerous, and that's why she said, "I'm sorry about what's gonna happen to you." She doesn't scare easily, so she pays attention when it happens. Frank tries to play it off cool, but we can see this has him a little worried. Shortly after, Frank goes upstairs into Abigail's room without his mask. Joey forgot to tell him that she took the blindfold off. He freaks out and pulls his jacket over his face saying, "Look away, don't look at me. Did you see my face?" He pulls his gun out and repeats, "Did you see my face? Don't lie to me." Abigail begins to cry and says, "No, I didn't." He says, "What color are my eyes?" And Abigail cries, "I don't know." Frank takes this chance to ask who her father is, and his name is Christophe Lazar. Frank immediately reacts, and we can tell he knows who this is. Next, he calmly walks downstairs, picks up his coat, and says, "I'm out. Cut up my share however you want." Whoa, whoa, whoa. Frank is the leader of the group, and now he's just bailing? Joey demands he tells them what's going on at least before he just leaves. He tells them the girl's father is Christophe Lazar. Some other people in the group clearly know who he is because they have the same reaction that Frank did. Dean says, "Don't worry, that's just an urban legend." But Frank says, "It's no urban legend. He's very real. Believe me." Christophe Lazar is a crime boss, and he controls a lot more than just crime, whatever that means. Sammy doesn't know who Lazar is, but suggests they try to give the girl back. Frank says that should be easy. "Here's your daughter back, Mr. Antichrist. We're sorry. Maybe let's play around a golf sometime." What does he mean by Antichrist? I'm getting the feeling this guy's a mix of a crime boss and Anton LaVey. Frank also breaks the news that he accidentally walked into the room and the girl's seen his face. They contemplate if the job is worth it now that they know the risk. We finally learn how much they're being paid. $7 million each. After thinking about it, they calm down and decide they will finish the job. But once it's over, they will take the money and disappear forever. Move far away and start new lives. The house has this old elevator that looks like a cage. I wonder why they would show us that. Joey is searching through the house and hears a loud banging. She makes her way into a large room filled with books. The noise is coming from this window cover that is stuck. This mansion seems very ornate and old. I think this is the library, and in there is a large statue of someone standing next to a small girl. I wonder. Joey goes up to the room where Dawn is on lookout. They talk for a minute and Dawn invites her inside, but she says she has to stay professional. Earlier, they seem to have some chemistry as well, so I think it's alluding to them having some kind of secret romance going on. Meanwhile, Dean hides in Sammy's room and tries to scare her. He thought maybe they would hang out, but she throws him out of her room. This leads Dean to go on a little adventure through the mansion. First, he finds a sleeping Peter and draws something on his face. I'll let you guess what. Next, he lights a smoke and walks around the mansion checking things out. He continues to walk through the mansion, and he goes into a very dark room and has to use his lighter to see. When he raises the light, there's a large painting on the wall. First, we see the mansion with bats or strange creatures flying in the sky. As he moves the lighter, he comes across what looks to be a woman, wearing the same hat as the statue in the library, and a young girl that looks very similar to Abigail. This creeps Dean out, but I don't think he truly realizes what's going on. Next, he goes down into the kitchen. While looking around, the door to the storage area opens all by itself. He walks inside to look around and is scared by a rat, but it's empty. No one's in there. When he turns to leave, we hear a crunch, and the rat goes silent. A moment later, something grabs his legs and drags him into the dark. We never get to see what got him. Sammy thought she heard something, so she goes downstairs to look around. She walks into the storage area where Dean was, and no one's there. When she leaves, Dean is now sitting at the kitchen table. She tells him to stop messing around and approaches him, kicking his chair. When she does, his head falls off. Peter comes down a moment later and sees the headless Dean.
Why do you have a dick on your face?
What?
Sammy tells him to get help and he alerts the rest of the team. They are all horrified and worried. Joey turns to Frank and says, "What does that look like?" And he responds, "It looks like a wild animal ripped him apart." When he says this, Joey gives him a look, and Frank says, No, we're not going there." All of a sudden, everyone looks worried again. Sammy says, "Why are you guys acting so weird?" Joey says, "There's stories about Lazar's hitman, Valdez." Don tells the story he heard about Lazar's 3 top guys getting pinched a few years ago. The night before the trial, when they were supposed to testify, they were staying on the top floor of a hotel. A dozen agents in the next room and 2 guarding the door. The next morning, FBI goes into the room and finds them ripped apart, limbs and organs missing, decapitated. That's Valdez's signature. He's an animal. Apparently, the only way to get into that room was the door guarded by agents or the 23rd story window. Sammy thinks the story is fake, but Frank assures them that's not the first time he's heard that story. They think either one of them did it, or Valdez is in the mansion, or one of them is Valdez. They realize they better check on the girl, and she's still there. That doesn't mean they're safe though. Don has finally had enough and decides he's out now. They try to convince him to stay, but they don't have to. When Don opens the front door, there's another metal door or gate blocking them from leaving. They try to break it down, but it's too strong. There's also some kind of family crest on the door with a dragon. After opening the front door, they must have triggered something because all the windows get covered by metal shutters. This reminds me of the Predator maze once it's activated in Alien vs. Predator. Dom goes upstairs and notices that his rifle is gone. But everyone else still has pistols, so I don't know why the rifle is missing. Joey goes upstairs to talk to Abigail and asks if anyone has been in the room. And she tells Joey that Frank came in and talked to her. He said that he worked for her father, and he is Valdez. Joey goes outside and informs Dawn that Frank is Valdez, but something doesn't add up. The two agree to work together to get out. They are the only two with military experience, so they're pretty confident. Joey needs to make it home for her kid. Unfortunately, Dawn only makes it about 10 feet before he's brutally murdered. He's standing in a funny position and making weird noises, so Joey approaches him, and once again, it looks like a wild animal attack. She now goes downstairs to confront Frank and holds him at gunpoint. She accuses him of being Valdez, and I love this little trick he pulls here.
Don't do it, Peter.
Frank says, "You don't sound very calm right now, Miss Paranoid, so forgive me for the precaution." He denies being Valdez, but admits to being quite impressed that the little girl could successfully make them turn on each other. Things are going to have to get physical now. Frank tells Peter to kill Abigail, and he begins walking toward her room. Joey and Frank continue their standoff, but eventually she has no choice but to let Frank go and stop Peter. He was right about to shoot Abigail, and Joey stops him just in time. This leads everyone to having a standoff in Abigail's room. I guess they don't care about masks anymore. While they're all arguing, Sammy looks over to the bed and sees Abigail easily slip the handcuffs right off. Sammy is saying, "Guys? Guys?" But no one is paying attention. Finally, she gets their attention by yelling. They turn to see Abigail now standing on the bed doing what looks like a ballet move. This startles Frank. How the hell did she get out of the handcuffs? Abigail lowers her head into her arms and remains still for a moment, then unveils her true form. She sounds like some kind of animal, has a full mouth of sharp teeth and bright blue eyes. She jumps on Peter's back and tries to bite him. Luckily, Frank hits a headshot just in time and she falls to the floor. Peter makes sure that he isn't bitten, and before they can even think, Abigail comes back to life. She wipes the blood from her forehead and the bullet wound is completely gone. Abigail lets out another shriek and lunges for them, but they slam the bedroom door and lock it. There's no way that'll hold for long. Everyone goes downstairs to regroup and talk about what just happened. They kidnapped a vampire, a ballerina vampire. Peter is still worried if Valdez is in the house, but obviously, Abigail is Valdez. She is the hitman for her father. That explains why it always looked like an animal attack, and how she got to that 23rd story window. These vampires must be able to fly. Everything is starting to add up now. If Abigail is a vampire, she's probably a lot older than she looks. That would explain the statue in the library and the painting on the wall. This is her house. They need to find a way out, but Frank already tried. The doors all have magnetically sealed locks, and the window shutters are 2 inches thick of steel. Sammy might be able to hack the locks, but she has no equipment, so they would need to find a control room or something for her to use. Joey says to the group, "Okay, what do we know about vampires?" Sammy says, "Well, what are we talking about? Like Anne Rice, True Blood, Twilight? Very different kind of vampires." Everyone except Peter starts listing things off. They feed on blood. They can turn others into vampires, turn into bats, mind control, they don't have a reflection. Okay, but how do we kill a vampire? Garlic, stake through the heart, crucifixes, holy water, and of course daylight. Frank points out, "Oh, that's great, but it's 3:30 in the morning, so no sunlight for now." He gives Peter the job of sharpening the pool cues into stakes. Sammy was supposed to get garlic from the kitchen, but brings back onions instead. Frank wants to tool up and kill the girl. Joey knows that's a bad idea. Frank said it himself. The girl is smart. She's been manipulating them from the start. Plus, they don't even know if any of this stuff will work. Not to mention, if they kill the girl, they will have nothing left to bargain with to Lazar. Frank decides they're going to do it his way, and if Joey wants to sit out, that's fine. They get their stakes and go up to the bedroom. When they rush in, the room is empty. Just then, they hear music coming from another part of the house. They follow the music and rush into that room. Abigail is there, and she's dancing with Dean's dead body, hoisting it around like a puppet. When Abigail sees them, she tries to sound innocent again, saying, "What's happening? Let's just talk." But as soon as they start moving toward her, she goes full vampire. Abigail is able to overpower everyone, sending Frank flying across the room with one hit. She smells what I think is the garlic, and it does nothing. Next, she pins Peter to the ground and grabs his cross necklace. Well, I guess these vampires aren't weak to crosses either. Abigail holds the cross like a knife and begins stabbing Peter over and over. Frank tries to stake her from behind, but she turns around and grabs the stake mid-swing, like she's seen it coming. Then she uses it to stab Frank in the leg. The three of them retreat from the room, beat and wounded. As they close the door, Abigail just stares at them with a sinister smile.
Oh, Christ! Oh!
Upon returning downstairs, Joey has her "I told you so" moment. She asks why Abigail didn't kill them, and Frank says she's toying with us. The stake only worked on Frank's leg. She grabbed the crucifix and used it on Peter like a pincushion, and the garlic did nothing. Joey finally lets them in on her idea, the sedative. When they used it the first time, she was unconscious. Frank is afraid that she was only pretending, but Joey assures him that she checked Abigail's heartbeat, and she was definitely out. So their plan now is to get close enough to her to inject her with the sedative. They're gonna split up, and whoever finds Abigail first alerts Joey. Then she comes running with the sedative. If I ever write a horror movie, nobody is splitting up, because who in the world would split up in this situation? Anyway, everyone is looking around the mansion, except Peter.
There's no vampires here.
Not that I'm actually looking.
Channel's still open, dick face.
Sammy finds something that looks like a coffin, and approaches it slowly. When she swings it open, it's just a storage container. She continues to look around the basement, when her comms start to cut out. She pauses for a moment and a bat flies out of the darkness. This scares Sammy, causing her to run through a nearby door and fall into a pool full of bodies. Just a moment ago, we seen that Dean's body was gone now. So I wonder if this bat really was Abigail and she was just down there putting Dean's body in the pool. This pool full of bodies also shows us that this group isn't the first to be trapped in the mansion.
Peter!
I got a splinter!
Finally, Abigail shows herself and starts chasing Peter. She does these ballerina moves while chasing him, making it even more creepy. He locks her behind a door again, but this time, she hits the door so hard it explodes off the hinges. Once they get to the stairs, Abigail jumps on the railing and shows off her impressive agility and balance. Peter gets knocked over the railing and I thought he definitely broke his back, but no, he's actually fine. Frank gets kicked down the stairs, then Abigail grabs him by the throat and says, "What color are my eyes, Frank?" Get it? Like before when he pointed the gun at her. I thought that was a pretty cool little callback.
What color are my eyes, Frank?
At one point, she grabs Frank's leg and tries to fly away. So, confirmed these vampires can fly. With the help of a tackle off the stairs by Peter, they manage to pin her down and inject her with the sedative. This is the first time we see her angry, and she says, "I will kill you all and gorge myself on your blood." Well, they did it. Unfortunately, Sammy was bitten in the scuffle. Will she become a vampire now? They don't know. Most vampire curses require you to drink vampire blood in order to be turned, but some don't. When Abigail wakes up, they have her locked in the elevator we seen earlier that looks like a cage. See, they did show us that for a reason. Abigail tries to do her fake crying, but Joey tells her to stop. You're pretty good at pretending to be a little girl.
Thank you. I've had a few centuries of experience.
That makes her at least 200 years old, possibly older. That also means these vampires are similar to Anne Rice vampires in that once you are turned, you are stuck at that age forever. Abigail reveals she planned the whole thing. There was never any money. Lambert works for her. The group doesn't want to hurt her, they just want to know how to get out. But Abigail has no intention of telling them. Not only that, she reveals all their real identities. She says, "Don't you want to know why I brought you all here?" It turns out they all wronged her father, Christophe Lazar, in some way, even if they didn't realize it. She starts with Sammy. Her real name is Jessica Herney. Her criminal career started by siphoning money from her rich parents' bank accounts, then hedge funds, offshore accounts, and eventually bigger fish. She immediately apologizes and says she can give it back. So I guess that means she stole money from Christophe Lazar. Does that mean she was lying earlier when she said she didn't know who that was? I think so. Peter's real name is Terence Lacroix, muscle for the Montreal Broussard family. According to Abigail, he was constantly mocked by his crew for his stunted intellect. So eventually, he stole from them and ran away. Bad news is, he didn't know that crime family was a small subsidiary of Christophe Lazar's empire. Next is Frank, aka former detective Adam Barrett. He tried to infiltrate their New York arm when he was a detective, but he began to like the lifestyle a little too much. He finally arrested their 3 lieutenants, but the night before trial, she ripped their bodies to shreds. Adam changed his name, left town, and never seen his family again. This wasn't for their safety though. Adam was still addicted to the crime lifestyle. Well, that explains how Adam knew the story of Valdez killing the people on the top floor of the hotel. He was the whole reason those guys were there. It also explains how he knew for a fact that Christophe Lazar wasn't an urban legend. Lastly, we get to Joey. Her real name is Ana Lucia Cruz. She is a former army medic, kicked out for shooting up Uncle Sam's morphine. She tries to say she was injured in the field, but you can tell not even she believes that. She started working for some shady people as an underground doctor, but was too high on the job. Instead of removing a bullet, she nicked an artery and killed someone very important to the Lazar Empire. Then, she abandoned her kid with a deadbeat father and ran away. Even though we know their real names, I'm going to continue to refer to them by their nicknames because that's what the movie does. Joey snaps back and says, "What about you? When you said your father lost interest, you weren't lying. How many of your father's enemies do you have to kill before he loves you again?" By the look on Abigail's face, this must be at least partially true. Since Abigail's father is still alive, and she's apparently a few centuries old, then her father would also have to be a vampire. Frank says, if it's about revenge, why don't you just kill us? But Joey knows it's not about revenge. It's just some sick game being played by an immortal child. Abigail once again tries to get the group to turn on each other by offering the way out to whoever opens the cage. We get the impression that Peter is kinda slow, and he is tempted by the deal and starts walking toward the cage. Abigail continues to encourage him, and Joey is forced to shoot. Joey is also the medic, so she immediately patches him up. Everyone goes upstairs except Frank, because someone needs to watch the cage. Right away, Abigail begins messing with Frank, and tells him, "I'll give you the way out if you open the cage." He says, "Okay, you tell me first, and I'll open it." Surprisingly, she agrees. There's a secret door in the library, the bookshelf on the right wall, and then there were none. This must be the name of the book that opens the door. Frank walks over to the cage, grabs the lock, and does nothing. He says, "Still gullible at your age? Freak." Abigail starts to laugh, then hits the cage door, causing it to break off the hinges and send Frank flying backwards. It looks like he got a concussion and will need a minute to regain his composure, so she could have broken out of the cage at any time and was just playing with them. Abigail's about to bite Frank when Joey breaks a hole in the wall, allowing sunlight to come through. When the light hits Abigail, her arm explodes and she shrieks in pain. This allows them to run away, but they can see Abigail's arm is already healing. Okay, so these vampires have Deadpool-style healing. They can take gunshots to the head and regrow limbs. They retreat back into the library, the only room with sunlight. Jessica is afraid to go into the sunlight, but it's fine. Looks like she isn't turning into a vampire. Frank looks for the secret door Abigail told him about. Bookshelf on the right side, and then there were none. And it doesn't work. I guess it was worth a try. Joey's seen that Abigail was already healing. She is going to wait until nightfall and then attack. She tries to break through the wall to get outside, but it's no use. She's also out of candy, which is adding to the stress. We learned earlier she uses the candy as a way to distract herself from her addiction. Sammy has an idea that if they can find the main power and short it out, it should reset the system and open the doors. They break into two groups and start searching the mansion. Finally, something is happening to Sammy. She begins to hear Abigail's voice in her head saying, "Jessica." Then the bite on her arm heals instantly. She knows what's happening and tries to alert Peter, but she can't. It's like something won't let her. Abigail's voice echoes through her head again.
Jessica, you're mine.
When Peter turns around, Sammy is gone. She surprises him from the shadows and bites his neck, ripping off a chunk of flesh. We can see that Abigail is basically using Sammy like a puppet. She says that Peter drinks too much, so vampires must be able to taste the alcohol in blood, but this doesn't seem to have any effect. Peter tries to beg for Sammy to stop, but she leans down and says, "Sammy's not here," then finishes him off. After Peter is dead, Abigail starts dancing while puppeteering Sammy. The light is peeking between the boards, causing her skin to smoke slightly. Catherine Newton does a great job in this scene of really looking like she's being controlled. Eventually the others come looking and find Sammy standing by Peter's dead body. At first, she keeps her back turned so they can't tell she's a vampire, but as soon as she turns around, they run. They make it back to the library and thankfully the sun is still up and they stand in the rays. Abigail is speaking through Sammy and says, "I've always hated this room. This is where my father turned me." This confirms two things. First, this is indeed Abigail's house, if the painting and statue wasn't evidence enough. Secondly, it confirms that her father is a vampire. Sammy then runs toward them, but Joey picks up the serving tray and uses it to reflect the sun. This causes Sammy to explode into mist. These vampires are extremely sensitive to sunlight. I've seen vampires burst into flames and explode from being staked, but I don't know if I've seen a vampire explode from sunlight. After Sammy is dead, a secret door opens in the library. Okay, so there actually was a secret door, just not where she said it was. They walk through the door and down a hallway to a small room. A control room. There's cameras watching the house and a button that locks it down. Also inside this room is Lambert.
Backstabbing son of a... You're one of them! He's one of them!
He brought Frank down here to offer him a deal. He explains that Abigail turned him 2 years ago. She found out that Lambert helped Frank back in New York and threatened his family. Now all he does is bring Lazar's enemies here so she can play her hunting game. So Frank and Lambert have worked together in the past. But now, Lambert is done. He wants Frank's help to kill Abigail and her father. Then they can take over the whole thing.
Help me take her, and you can have anything. We'll need a little upgrade.
He offers to turn Frank into a vampire, but Frank doesn't want to be a puppet like Sammy. He says, oh no, you'll get the full treatment. Complete autonomy, like me. Frank thinks about it for a few seconds and agrees. Lambert knocks out Joey, then bites Frank. The difference here is that he doesn't just bite him. Lambert also lets Frank drink some of his vampire blood. This is how you become a full vampire, not just a puppet like Sammy was. After being bitten, Frank's body starts to rumble and he collapses. He throws up what looks like most of his blood, and just a few moments later, he stands up. Lambert tells him Joey can be his first victim. Instead, Frank stabs Lambert through the heart and he explodes just like Sammy. These vampires are like balloons. It took Sammy almost 24 hours to fully change, but it only took Frank a few minutes. I guess when you become a full vampire, the process is sped up. I was hoping he would be like a good vampire, but no. He immediately switches sides and starts trying to kill Joey. I don't know that the vampire curse makes you evil. It might be more like it brings out someone's true intentions. Before he can kill Joey, we hear Abigail whistling, walking down the hallway. She is whistling the same song she kills to, a famous ballet composition called Swan Lake, created in 1875. Maybe more interesting is that this song was used as the main theme for the 1931 Dracula. I wonder if the movie is trying to tell us something. Abigail enters the room and asks Frank if Lambert told him they can take it all. So she knew that Lambert was planning to overthrow her. Seems like a bad idea to let him be in control of the mansion then. Frank is standing with his back turned, so I don't think Abigail knows that he's a vampire yet. When she tries to approach, Frank grabs her and bites her. Even though Abigail is much older, I guess they don't get stronger with age. Or maybe it's because Abigail is so small. He almost drains her completely and leaves her unconscious. While that was happening, Joey grabbed her phone, unlocked the mansion, and went into the hallway. She uses this moment to call her son, but she gets the answering machine and leaves him a message. Now that Frank is done with Abigail, he comes after Joey, throwing her back into the library, then all the way up onto the second floor. He beats Joey up some more and says that he plans to make her into his puppet, then make her kill her own son. He holds Joey by the neck over the second floor and throws her. This is when Abigail returns, and in a twist of fate, saves Joey and pleads for her help. Abigail says she can't defeat him on her own, and I'm guessing this is because she's now weakened. If Joey can help kill Frank, she will be allowed to leave the mansion and go back to her son. When she offered Frank the deal, I knew she was lying, but this time she seems honest. I mean, she has no choice or she'll die. Even with both of them fighting together, they are still having a hard time against Frank. I guess this guy's just a naturally good vampire. He pins Joey to the wall with a fire poker and bites Abigail again. While being fed on, she sticks out her pinky, referencing the promise that Joey made. I mean, I think that promise was null and void after you tried to murder everyone, but it's an alright callback. Once again, Frank leaves Abigail on the ground weakened, then pulls the fire poker right through Joey. Ouch. Abigail is too weak, so Frank bites Joey and tries to make her his puppet. He commands her to grab the stake, and she does. Then he tells her to stand, and she does. Next, he says kill Abigail. Joey walks toward her and raises the stake, but at the last second spins around and tries to stake Frank. He catches her hand though and throws her through a bookcase. This gives Abigail just enough time to jump on his back, Joey then stops him from biting by putting the fire poker in his mouth and pulling him to the ground. During the fight, Abigail begins to laugh, saying, "You thought you could just make her your puppet?" Abigail now grabs the stake and tries to pierce Frank's heart. He is resisting for now, but once Joey joins in, they start to overpower him. Abigail takes this opportunity to drop possibly the best line of the movie. The thing about being a vampire is,
It takes a long time to learn how to do all the cool shit.
the stake plunges into Frank's chest and he explodes, leaving them in a pool of blood. So the puppet trick didn't work on Joey the same as Sammy. My guess is that the reason Sammy became a puppet was because Abigail was controlling her mentally. We could hear Abigail's voice in Sammy's head like telepathy. This must be critical in creating a vampire puppet. The other problem is Abigail actually waited for Sammy to turn, which took quite a while. Frank just bites her and tries to do it right away. Joey remembers she was bitten by Frank, but Abigail assures her, now that he's dead, she won't turn. Similar to most vampire curses, if you kill your sire before you are fully turned, you will revert to being a human. Abigail thanks Joey, says I hope you get your son back, and actually does allow her to leave. Everything seems to be going great. But right before Joey leaves, a dark figure enters the room. And whoever it is, Abigail looks worried. He is very imposing. Gray skin, razor-sharp teeth, dressed in a long black coat. Joey is terrified, only able to say, Lazar.
I've gone by many names over the countless years.
The fact that he says he has gone by many names alludes to him being quite old, possibly ancient. I wonder if the name Lazar is a play on the Lazarus effect, which is the medical phenomenon of someone coming back to life. It's a great name for a vampire. He seems quite bloodthirsty and reveling in Joey's fear. Abigail begs him to stop, and he has an outburst of anger. After the outburst, he immediately calms down, and for a moment, looks emotional. He must be able to sense that Abigail was truly in danger this time, and not just trying to get his attention. I really like the effect on his voice, and all the other vampires as well. It's subtle, but it takes on this more guttural tone. When her father yells, there's also some kind of high-pitched noise layered underneath, like a screech of some kind.
Father, don't!
It's a great effect. I hate when vampire shows or movies just use a straight-up lion's roar or other animal sounds. It's weird, and it takes me right out of it. I also hate when vampires hiss like a cat. These vampires are portrayed very strong and unpredictable, making them scary. It gives them an uneasy presence, like they could kill you at any moment, especially Abigail's father. After listening to Abigail's pleas, he introduces himself to Joey. He kisses her hand that's covered in blood, and upon tasting it, has to restrain himself. He says, I think you should leave. It's getting awfully close to dinner time. Abigail says goodbye to Joey, and she's allowed to exit the mansion. She also said, I'll see you around, and that doesn't sound good. Joey gets in the vehicle, and before driving away, finds one last piece of candy. There's still a few mysteries left about this movie. I think the most interesting question is Lazar's identity. He said that he has gone by many names over the years. My theory is that Lazar could be Dracula. If Abigail is a minimum of 200 years old, then Lazar could be ancient for all we know. If we go by Bram Stoker's idea that Dracula is Vlad the Impaler, then he would be around 500 years old, definitely within reach of Lazar. There's also the song Swan Lake that Abigail listens to and was a theme for a Dracula movie. The one other piece of evidence I found was this symbol on the front gate. It appears to be a dragon. Dracula and his father were known to be members in the Order of the Dragon. Could be just a coincidence, but I don't think so. The other mystery that has me scratching my head is who the mysterious person is in the painting and the statue. It's definitely the same person, because they're wearing the same hat. If I had to guess, I would say it's Abigail's mother. She must be human because Abigail was born human. We know this because she admits that she was turned in the library. It's possible Abigail's mother decided to stay human and eventually passes from old age. Clearly Lazar cared for her though, enough to have her immortalized in a painting and this big statue. I'm surprised that the statue or this woman isn't at least referenced once, but it was probably better to keep the story more streamlined. I'm also curious about what those things were flying around the house in the painting. That's my video on Abigail. Honestly, I really enjoyed the movie. There was enough action, scares, and mystery spread throughout the movie to keep me invested start to finish. Not to mention good actors, no over-the-top effects, and great music selection. I forgot to mention the rock song she dances to is Blood and Tears by Danzig. If you go to the song on YouTube now, it's just flooded with comments about Abigail. I think the standouts in the movie, or at least my favorites, were definitely Abigail, Frank, and Joey. I was really impressed with Alicia Weir as Abigail. I think she portrayed a great vampire. Whether she was angry, crying, or reveling in the group being tortured, I believed it. As for Abigail's dad being Dracula, I think it's pretty obvious. Apparently the movie was even shot under the codename Dracula's Daughter, although that could be just to throw us off. Let me know what you guys think. Is Christophe Lazar Dracula? Anyway, if I had to rate this movie, I would probably give it a 7.5 out of 10. If you haven't seen it and you're a fan of this channel, I would 100% recommend it. I'm sorry I can't remember who it was, but somebody pointed out on Reddit that there's an Easter egg in the mansion. There's a portrait of Tony Le Domas, a character from the movie Ready or Not, which was directed by the same people. I'm pretty sure they also confirmed that the two movies take place in the same universe. Some of the people in Ready or Not explode just like the vampires in Abigail, and both may have something to do with the sun. The connection between these movies might be deeper than we know. I love when directors put Easter eggs like that in their movies. One other Easter egg I know about that was confirmed by the directors is that the name Ana Lucia Cruz is meant to be a play on the name Lucy Westenra from Bram Stoker's Dracula. They added Cruz, which means cross in Spanish, kind of signifying that she would be the savior. If there's any other movies, TV shows, or video games you want me to cover, please leave them in the comments below. If you enjoyed, leave a like, and subscribe if you haven't. It helps out a lot and I really appreciate it. As always, an extra big thanks to all my members for supporting the channel. It means a lot. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.